Welcome back to Texas Liberty Podcast. I'm Clark Patterson, your host today. It's now Thursday evening, April 11th, 2024, and I have with me today both candidates for LP Texas Treasurer's race, which will be held this weekend at the Libertarian Party of Texas State Convention in Corpus Christi. I have both Joe Burns with me here on the podcast, as well as Patrick Mitchell. So we'll start out, of course, by asking both candidates to introduce themselves and how long they've been involved in liberty activism, and just explain maybe about themselves. And so why don't we start with you first, Joe?
Well, I've been a member of LP Texas since 2018, or well, I want to say maybe late 17, early 18. And I actually got on the executive committee in 2018 and have been on that consecutively since then. I guess my liberty journey started in 2011 with the Gary Johnson campaign. I left the Republican Party and had become apolitical and didn't know the LP existed. And once I found it and read the principles that it stood for, I realized I've been a libertarian my entire life. And but I didn't become active in the party politics until 2018.
Great. And was there any particular thing that caused you to see the light about liberty, Joe?
Yeah, I helped the Tea Party flip the House in 2010, and at the time the Tea Party was in its infancy, and we were basically about limiting government, reducing the size of government, reducing the tax burden, and being more fiscally responsible. And then it turned out, after we helped flip the House back to Republican control, government kept growing, taxes kept growing, and I think that was my aha moment, where I realized that the Republican Party was no different than the Democrats as far as making government grow and increasing taxes.
Okay, great. So Patrick, what's your background story?
And I used to be pretty apolitical. I wasn't really involved at all. And I used to consider myself actually more of a liberal. But yeah, it was about 2007, 2008 with the Ron Paul presidential campaign that I started learning about libertarianism, and just after that, just went down the rabbit hole looking at learning about it, and then first became involved with the LP in 2016, and just with my county party here, and then towards the end of 2019 into 2020, I started getting more involved with the state party and the national party.
Great, great. So y'all have both been involved pretty heavily for the last few years now. It sounds like over 5 years for both of y'all. In fact, maybe in Joe's case, even up to 10 years. So, well, let me ask you a question I haven't really asked any of the candidates before, but have either of y'all ever converted somewhat to libertarianism, whether it's a close family member or a close friend? Because, I think it's pretty it's kind of one of the worst kept secrets. A lot of libertarians have very good friends who aren't libertarian. In some cases, even a spouse or a sibling. I mean, obviously, we all have many. There are many situations like this, but so I'm just curious. Why don't we start with you, Joe? Can you think of someone who you actually caused them to see the light about liberty, and what can we learn from that experience, or what have you learned when it comes to spreading the word?
Well, I've converted several close friends and acquaintances, people that I went to high school with, that I still stay in touch with through Facebook, and through constantly posting about liberty issues and giving the libertarian perspective. Over time, I've seen people come to quote unquote see the light. I guess the thing that I've learned is it's no easy feat to pull that off, to break people out of their mental chains, their connection with the old parties. In my case, because I lean more to the conservative side. Most of my friends, I'd say the vast majority of them, are in the Republican side. So I concentrate on the issues that are close to them, like the Second Amendment issues and fiscal responsibility, where we can show them the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. And I've noticed, because I've converted several people, each person is on their own journey, so to speak, and taking their own time. Some they convert quicker, some take longer to convert. But if you stay consistent in laying down your thought process, the libertarian philosophy, and juxtaposing that against what's going on in government, I think that eventually people have to see the light, or they have to at least acknowledge that, which I've got several friends in this position, they're acknowledging that we're right, but now they're wrestling with this idea that, well, if I don't vote Republican right now, the Democrats are going to win, and I'm more afraid of them winning than I am the Republican, so I can't quite vote for the Libertarian Party yet. So making that, I think there's two phases there. At least it has been for me. One is getting them to agree with you philosophically, getting them to understand where the libertarian philosophy falls, and getting them to agree with that. But then the next hurdle, and the biggest, by far the biggest hurdle, is then to get them to vote the way they think, get them to decide that I'm done with the other two parties. I'm ready to make a stand. Even if we don't win, I know that my vote is going to help the LP get those vote totals up so that we eventually can win.
So it sounds like, Joe, then you do have some close family friends and maybe even family members, children,
Yes.
maybe, or spouse who.
Mother.
I'm sorry, who's that?
I actually converted my own mother.
Wow. Wow. I tip my hat. Wow. That is hard to do, believe me. Well, that's great. That's great news. How about you, Patrick? Any stories you can tell about how personally you've maybe caused someone to see how the importance of liberty, and are they close friends, or even, a spouse or children or parents?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some friends, like some old college friends that, like I've gotten to see the libertarian side on certain issues, but it's difficult to, like, you can't really force somebody to just be a libertarian, like you can really only help them with that, on their journey, and try to provide them with the right information. So it's really just kind of a long process if you're trying to do something like that.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Well, let's also speak about, ever since the Reno reset 2 years ago, it seems like, of course, the LP Texas has grown considerably, but we seem to have somewhat, in some ways, LP Texas is somewhat factionalized now. You have a huge influx in the last 2 years of libertarians with the Mises caucus, and there does seem to be some acrimony now among some of these members. So I thought I would just pose these questions to both you guys, since of course y'all are running for the entire LP treasurer position statewide. So how do you see this movement over the last couple of years in LP Texas? Again, ever since around the Reno reset, do you see your election, should you win this weekend, either of y'all, do you see that as a way to bring everybody together and keep everyone in the party, even, let's say, the side that loses? So can y'all expand on that, both of y'all? Why don't we go, Joe, with you first?
I was in the Mises caucus initially. I can't, I'd say maybe a year or two. I can't put my finger on exactly, the date that I left and kind of became independent again. But Texas, we definitely have our factions. I don't think there's an organization within the LP that doesn't have factions. People lean different directions and have different viewpoints. And when you're trying to shape the direction of the party, factions are going to arise where a certain number of people want the party to go in one direction and certain want it to go in another. And I don't think fundamentally there's anything wrong with that, as long as, as we all agree that once we've got the leadership set, that we all work together, towards our common goals. So I don't see a problem with that. I don't know that this particular office, the office of treasurer, can really be all that factionalized. I mean, numbers are what they are, and while you can draw different conclusions or different opinions about what we should do with those numbers, 2 + 2 still equals 4, and there's no amount of factionalism that can really change that, right?
Sure. And what are your thoughts on the factionalism that's cropped up, Patrick, over the last couple of years within LP Texas?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, at least in some way, that's happened. Like I do want us to all work together, but yeah, I mean, of course, as Joe said, wanting to put, when you want to push the party in a certain direction, of course, factions are going to rise with that, and of course, yeah, I am part of the Mises caucus, so I am part of a faction, but yeah, I still want us to all be able to work together, and and like one also with what he said with treasurer position being, you can't really be too factionalized in that. Numbers are numbers, and I agree with that. And my one of my main reasons for wanting to run for treasurer is to support Nathan, because I'm running sort of with him, Nathan for chair. He's and support his idea for supporting local candidates and stuff like that.
So it sounds like, based on your answers, gentlemen, so no matter what the results are this coming weekend down in Corpus Christi, you guys are still going to be gung-ho activist in the LP Texas. Could y'all both expand on that? So again, we'll start with you, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had an officer position. This is one of the 4 officer positions. I haven't had an officer position up to this point, so I don't see why, if I don't get elected, that would change. Or if I do get elected, it doesn't mean that I'm only going to work with certain people. The main reason I'm running for treasurer is to ensure that all of our donor assets are well safeguarded, well taken care of, and the fiduciary responsibility we have is held to the highest standard. And I don't differentiate between donors. Regardless of what angle you're coming from, if you open your wallet and give money to LP Texas, it's going to be respected and taken care of. So that's kind of where I come from. And like I said, regardless of whether I win or lose, I'm still going to do my liberty activism. It just may not be. It may shift direction, but I'll still be with LP Texas one way or the other. I've already turned in my interest form to remain on select in the event that I'm not elected treasurer.
Great. And so what are your thoughts on that, Patrick? Will you still be as active as you are now, even if things don't go according to plan for you this coming weekend?
Yes, whether I win or lose, I'll still be here. I'll still, be trying to help the party in whatever way I can, and push liberty to as many people as possible. So I don't plan on going anywhere.
Great. That's what I think the vast majority of LP Texas members want to hear from both of you, and that's what we've heard. Let's talk about finances of LP Texas. There seems to be some misunderstanding, maybe, or confusion from people like me who don't really look at the numbers. What is the state of LP Texas's finances right now? I've been told by some people that right now we're spending more. At least last year, 2023, we spent more than we actually brought in, and also that this year looks like the budget is we're under budgeted over $50,000. So I think you guys would know a whole lot more about this than someone like me. So I guess we'll continue the order. We'll go with you first, Joe, and then Patrick, you can follow up. Just try to give us an idea of what you know about the current state of finances. Donations, the budget
Sure.
that we're spending both last year and this year. How are things with LP Texas financially right now?
Well, as you mentioned, they're not as good as they were in 2022, but they're far better than they were back in 2018 when I came on board. We've steadily been making major climbs. 2022 was an exceptional year. We came at the end of the year with 6 figures over budget, and that allowed us to expand and operate, and spend a little more money and do some more things with it in 2023. We haven't quite hit our fundraising goals, but because we had such an overage in 2022, 2023 hasn't hurt us that badly. Unlike a typical business, your donations, your income is your donations, and it fluctuates based on what's going on in the political landscape. If there's a year where no one's running, we're not going to see as many donations. In a presidential year, we tend to see more. So these things ebb and flow based on what's going on in the political world. I would like to see, donations increase, and we need we always can do better, to raise more money for the party. But at the times that we've needed money, such as when I spearheaded the campaign to raise, I think it was something like 40,000 was the goal. We blew the doors off the goal for the legal fund to help fund the lawsuits that we have going against the state of Texas for the unconstitutional filing fees that our candidates are facing. We were able to bring that up and hit our goal of raising that money in a 2 to 3 month time frame. So when we do need money for specific things, we've shown time and time again that we can raise those things. And so I don't doubt that that we can bring in more. Um, I think when you're the treasurer, you have more influence over that because you can either raise more alarms or do a little more spurring to get more money raised when the time is needed, or inform select that, hey, we need to dial back our spending here for a little while until we can get more income coming in. You're kind of I guess the person with the alarm bell in your hand because you're the one with the fingers really on the pulse of the inflows and outflows of cash.
So I guess from that answer, Joe, it sounds like you feel that LP Texas right now is financially sound,
Oh
fiscally
yeah,
solvent.
I definitely believe we're financially sound and solvent. I don't think there's an issue with that. We're just simply we've spent more than we brought in 2023, which has spent down some of the overage we gained in the prior year. And that'll have to be adjusted for if we get in here in another 3 to 6 months and we find that we're still in that scenario and we haven't raised a bunch of money, then things will change. But we're going to have to see what the numbers look like after state convention because the state convention has raised quite a bit of money thus far, especially in the Vote with Your Dollars campaign for the presidential debate. We've raised quite a bit of funds there. So I'm interested to see what the numbers look like after convention because the state convention is one of it's the largest expense we have and the largest income that we have on any given year every other year when it takes place.
Okay. What are your thoughts on this, Patrick?
So yeah, the party is still okay financially. Yeah, because in previous years we did bring in, particularly it was actually in 2021 when we had an income of about $160,000, only spent $66,000. So we had almost 100K more than we spent. But this past year, started a downward trend where we spent about 28,000 more than we brought in. So, that's something definitely want to see, try and, make sure that doesn't continue to happen, so yeah, anywhere that we can cut costs, want to help with that. And anywhere that we can bring in more money, definitely, we need to look into that.
Well, just to follow up, do you think there's any specific thing? I know you're just treasurer. Should you be elected this weekend, both of y'all, is there any particular thing you would recommend to at least bring in more donations? Or are there any particular things? Again, I know you'd just be treasurer; you wouldn't be chair or vice chair. Any particular ideas that you've gleaned over the last few years of your activism?
Well, at least there's already a couple things that's already that's going to help bring the budget down already. That's already happened, and that's one with Andrew Ameling stepping down as executive director. That's going to be his salary cut from the budget there. Then also we just recently discontinued the use of L2, which is going to be another $13,000 that we're not spending. So that's some good things right there. We're going to be able to cut out.
I'm sorry, what's L2? Can you explain that to?
It's a voter data. Basically, it's a database where that at least this past year the party was using to be able to look up and collect voter data that we can then give out to various different candidates who are running their races or to county parties to help with different things. But yeah, it's basically just a database of voter data.
Okay, great. And Joe, what are your thoughts about your role as treasurer in helping to keep cost in balance, bring in more money, spend less? Do you have any particular thoughts on what you could do to further that?
Well, obviously keeping an eye on expenses and seeing if we see anything that's out of line or on the counter side of that, following the income. And if income starts to lag compared to expenses, letting select know as soon as possible so they understand where we're at so that we can adjust accordingly. If we need to raise money or if we need to look at cutting expenses. So it's just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on financially, and keeping accurate records so that you know exactly where you stand. And I think that's the key focus of the treasurer's position. So as far as fundraising things we can do, I've worked in the development department before, and we've done various fundraisers to bring in money when we need to. I'll leave that to Jenny and Andrew. They've really taken care of that and knocked the ball out of the park when we needed to. But at this moment, I don't really have anything that I'm eyeing as a fundraiser other than what we're doing with lifetime memberships the lifetime member lunch that we'll have Sunday should raise a good chunk of money and what's going to be coming in from the convention. Like I said, I really want to get those numbers in, see where we're at, and see if we need to adjust the budget moving forward, whether that be trying to increase income or cutting expenses relative to where we're at that point.
Okay, well, in the time we have remaining, guys, let me ask just some more general questions. It seems like the LP has been kind of stuck at the 2 to 3% percentage level. I mean, when there's not a two-person race, when there's a three-person race, the LP seems kind of to be stuck at the 2 to 3% ratio of voters. So, any ideas of why that is, and is there anything you think either of you guys think that we could do as an LP member? Again, I know this is just a race for treasurer, so but it's good to know what your thoughts are as to what maybe we could do to get out of that 2 to 3% rut that we've been in forever.
Well, as I mentioned before, to me, the second phase in converting someone is getting them to vote differently, right? It's much easier to me to get them to agree with you philosophically, but then to get them to break out of their fear of the other party that they hate so much that they're willing to take a stand with us and grow the party. That's the hard part, right? So putting more effort into outreach, teaching our activists to be better at outreach and fostering those programs that will help that outreach and keep moving forward. And part of that goes with candidacies, right? The more candidates we run, the more campaigns that we have out there doing that outreach, the more votes we're going to achieve over time. It's a tough game. There's no easy switch that we can flip to get this done. It's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of hard activism and outreach to get it done.
Okay, well, before we switch to Patrick, how are things on the ground there in Kingsland, Joe? I mean, you mentioned before we started the show that things are kind of rough out there, but I mean, are there any specific things that I mean, just as a member of LP Llano County, anything that you guys can do? Obviously, you mentioned it's kind of a red area. I'm sure it's Trump country, and
yes, yeah, it's so very red that there are Democrats that run on the Republican ticket so they can get elected.
I see.
And the people are blissfully unaware that they're actually Democrats and they're electing them because they have an R by their name. It's very much a team vote type situation out here, and so it's very tough. It's very, very tough out here to break people out of that mindset of having pulled that lever for the R's their entire life. But we do. I see progress. Every time I talk to people, every time I attend an event and a political event out here and get a chance to speak with some people, I see progress. But it's definitely slow. I think I've spent a lot of my activism time at the state level, getting the state on track and trying to keep it on track. I would love to be able to find someone better suited for the county, for Llano County to run as county chair there, because I've been holding that down. It basically in name only. I haven't had enough time to develop the county while working at the state level. So we need to put more effort into supporting our counties so that they can go out and do that outreach work.
Great. So, Patrick, what are your thoughts, both in general, as to why the LP seems stuck at this 2%, 2 to 3% range, and also, maybe you can mention how things are in the locality that you're in. I'm not even sure where. In fact, where are you located, Patrick? And
yeah, I'm located in Victoria County.
Okay, yeah. And that's near. What's the big city in that area?
It's about halfway between Houston and Corpus.
Oh, okay. So what are your thoughts? I guess we'll start generally. Why do you think the LP has been stuck at the 2 to 3% range for, seems like forever?
Yeah, so first I think that's around the amount of people that are just not going to vote for, they're fed up already with the Republicans and Democrats, and so they're just looking for another choice. And so what I think first is we need a lot more outreach. We need a lot more education on our what libertarianism is. I think one of the ways that is through definitely the bigger campaigns like president or governor or a senator or something like that, that we need a candidate in there who's going to you know, be, speak to our principles and try to educate people on, what the Libertarian Party is about and what libertarianism is about. Um, you know, because I mean, like the way that I got brought in through the Ron Paul presidential campaigns, like that's basically what he did when he campaigned, was he was educating people on these principles, and that converted a lot of people to these ideas, and so I think we need more of that, more of people campaigning kind of like that, uh, and then also we need, I think, to try and focus more on winnable races, where we can actually, like, so we have the candidates who are like the president or governor, have some focus on that, to where the educational campaigns, but then we on the focus for campaigns where we can actually win, like more at the local level, or like state races where it's maybe only like only one person is running, like a Republican's only running that place where you can run, where it'll be a 2-person race. We need to focus on races like that, and try and put our resources more towards that than trying to run just as many people as possible.
And also, how are things down in with LP Victoria County? I mean, how are the things where you are? I'm assuming that's also a pretty red area.
Yeah, it's pretty red here. I'd say it's about 75% Republican here.
Is that all?
But I mean, yeah, it can be a difficult time, especially in the smaller counties and smaller cities. It can be difficult to get people activated and involved, and especially here in Victoria County. I don't know what it is with here, but there's a lot of apathy. Like the voter turnout typically is only around like 20 to 30% usually. So it's really just difficult to kind of just get people involved in the first place, and that's kind of the first major hurdle. But I mean, slowly, been doing okay. Like my first time, like I first became chair here back in 2020, and um, that year, it was just me who showed up to county convention. The next time, 2022, I had 2 other people come, and this past year I had now 3 other people. So slowly we're growing and getting more. So
Right.
hopefully I can continue that trend.
And I've noticed that the Mises Caucus folks have done a great job of stressing project decentralization, which is kind of like what you had mentioned a minute ago, Patrick, about how we should focus on some of these local, county level city council races where, like you're saying, some of them, of course, are nonpartisan, but there may just be one other candidate, major party, of course, but especially if it's nonpartisan, that'd be a way to get, local people involved at the local level, kind of a decentralization. So I assume you're on board with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100% on board with project decentralization, and yeah, even if it's a nonpartisan campaign, I think we should be, trying to run people are looking into the candidates and endorsing people that share our values and principles, and trying to put some resources behind them to get them elected, so that they
Right.
can, at the very least, get into the local governments, and then from there they can try and nullify bad legislation from either the state or the federal level, and try to make us a more free society.
Great. And what are your thoughts on that, Joe, about having the LP get behind more local and county level races?
I think it's a smart call. I mean, we need to build our bench. Winning, more races is obviously better, and it's the goal. And historically, we've shown that we do a lot better in nonpartisan races, like our city council races, where people aren't running based on team; they're running on name. So if you're going to go to the polls and vote, you're gonna have to do a little research about what that candidate stands for, right? So nonpartisan races are definitely something I think we should support, and they tend to be smaller races. So I'm definitely down with focusing our dollars as well. I think one of my criticisms of the LP in general, especially when I first came on board, was that we spread our money far too wide. And of course, each of us is libertarian. We're going to do what we're going to do. But if we could all make a gentleman's agreement to try to focus our money and efforts more on the winnable races rather than spreading it far and wide, I think we'd see more wins. Because a lot of times we'll have races that are winnable, but the campaign just can't get the funding that it needs to get the job done. And a lot of times that funding has been spread out amongst other candidates, but that's a tough road to hoe. And we don't always agree on what that strategy should be. But I'm definitely a fan of supporting smaller races and more winnable races and focusing our money where it's going to be the most effective, more of a rifle approach than a shotgun approach.
Great. Well, listen, guys, we're coming down to our last couple of minutes. So, you guys have been so respectful to each other. I'm very impressed. I think that no matter what the result this coming weekend for the LP Texas treasurer race, LP Texas will be in great hands financially. So let's finish up, guys, with just a 1-minute summation as to why you want the job and maybe even why you think you might be the better candidate. So I guess we started with Joe. So I guess we should start with Joe and we'll finish with you, Patrick. So we'll start with Joe.
Well, one of the things I want to see done, I want to see us put into place robust anti-embezzlement effects situation. Basically, like we've already kind of started doing that. I pushed a motion at this last select meeting to get Jocelyn on as bookkeeper. She was on underneath the outgoing treasurer, Kate, and she'll be underneath whichever one of us takes over the treasurer's role. And that's important that we don't have just one person, with their finger on the trigger of the bank accounts, right? So the more people we have watching it and interacting with the different transactions, the better off we're going to be from an embezzlement standpoint. And beyond that, having outside third party looking over our shoulder into the books. Like I want to see a third party audit, and that's something I'll have to get pushed through select, but that will be something I focus on if elected.
Great. And your closing thoughts, Patrick?
Yeah. So, also part of my background is I was treasurer for my college fraternity for 2 terms, and I also served as bookkeeper for a little while under Kate a couple of years ago. And so with that experience, and also I've got a pretty good attention to detail, and I think all this can make me suited for doing a good job in this position. And then I just also trying to help the party move in a direction that as I've already said before, is helping support local candidates and trying to do more outreach and more education on our principles and ideals.
Well, great. Well, gentlemen, I've really enjoyed this. I'll try to have this podcast posted by early tomorrow morning. In fact, if you guys can send me your Twitter handles, I'll make sure when I post it on Twitter that I actually, put your Twitter handle in it. And so folks can see this, going into this weekend. So as we wrap up, I'd just like to remind the audience and everyone else that tyranny exists when the people fear the government. Liberty exists when the government fears the people. So go out and show the government you're not scared. Thank you, gentlemen, and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.